Most tea drinkers think that tea plants exist either wild or cultivated, but that binary model is wrong. These tea live in the space that most of us ignore, the transitional phase. This is Nannuoshan, I'm Gabriele. Restocking this tea, Ergazi, reminded me that there is a topic that over the years we forgot covering on this channel. But, well, let's take it a step at a time and let's start defining what wild plants are. Wild plants are reproduced by seeds. The genetic material of the plants is changing generation after generation according to the law of nature, evolution and the mutation between generations, and there is no human intervention, no human set goal. A cultivar is quite the opposite. Cultivars are a human-defined genetic type. They are created by breeding, in which we, humans, select the parent plants, combine them, and through a long-term selection process, we keep on discarding individuals, or actually plants, that don't have the traits that we are searching to, and by just removing over and over again those plants that don't have our characteristics, our wish characteristics, we end up selecting a very specific plant. The objective of breeding are usually increasing or actually maximizing the yield of the plant, increase the resistance against pests and diseases, and also achieving a certain specific taste profile. Once breeding is successful, we have achieved those targets. It's a matter of keep on propagating the same plant. We are not doing that by seed, but usually by cuttings. As sometimes we do at home, we just take a branch of a plant, we plant it, and we create a plant that is genetically identical to the mother plant. And now we come to transitional varieties. A transitional variety is not a step between a wild plant and a cultivar, like a wild plant that eventually will become a cultivar. It is actually an existing type by its own and is not meant to become anything afterwards or before. Like a wild plant is meant to remain a wild plant and a cultivar is meant to remain a cultivar. It's called transitional variety because it shows aspects of both wild plants and cultivars in a way. First of all, it is propagated by seed, so it's not a cultivar. Moreover, there is a certain human intervention, but more than a selection really, is a domestication, if you want. And the genetic material is still very diverse in the population. What does it mean? If you think at a cultivar, it has a very specific set of genes, and each of these genes come in a very specific form. While in the case of a transitional variety, the genetic material of the population is diverse. The same gene appears in different alleles, and an allele is actually a form of a gene. So you have, yes, similar genes, but they appear in different forms. And this is also reflected in a way in the appearance of the plant. So the plant don't have all exactly the same size of leaves, the same color, the same shade, even the same type of bitterness. There is an overarching direction, if you want, but is not as consistent as in a cultivar. So you cannot say, oh no, this is not the specific transitional variety because these leaves don't have exactly the same shape or don't have the same hue of green. It's kind of different. And now, where does come the difference? The difference is that the kind of human selection in that case is not done in a lab somewhere in a centralized place, but is done locally where the plant is growing true normal praxis. Basically, it's farmer deciding we are picking the leaves out of these trees because they taste better. It's just, something more local and more agricultural, if you want. And there is how can I say, there is the tendency to believe that these differentiation in genes and this differentiation in appearance and avoiding actually to interrupt the process of Mother Nature, if you want, results in a different taste, maybe that we like most. Because at the end, this type of domestication is not really replacing nature, it's just adding a layer on top of nature, if you want. It's not that it's stopping the natural evolution of the plant. Now the big question is where to find those transitional varieties you have never heard of. Well, one of the best places, or maybe even the best place in the world to find traditional varieties is Baiyingshan, which is located in the north of the Lincang prefecture at the very northern end of the Yunnan mountain range. It is a mountain area, and in this place, in Baiyingshan, you can witness the whole range of the tea tree evolution. It was recognized in 2006 for this very reason, and since 2021 it has become a protected area, an open-air museum, the Tea Tree Evolution Natural Museum. There you can see at least 12 different types of plant, and some of them are in one of these categories that we have discussed. Some of them are completely wild, some other are cultivars, and some other are in this transitional phase in between. The most famous, not the only one, but the most famous traditional variety in Baiyingshan is Ergazi, of which we have this cake here. Ergazi in Baiyingshan has even a very ancient mother tea tree that is supposed to be around 2,800 years old, but there are also many other transition trees belonging to the same population of Ergazi, or Gushu as well. We have got a producer that had access to this garden in 2021. I sourced the tea for the first time in 2021, and ever since has been a success, so I've been trying to sourcing this tea over and over again. Now, the problem is that this time, just a few weeks ago, I actually bought everything that was left in China, at least to my knowledge, and this means also that the next batch on the shop will be also the last one of this particular tea. And since our contact is not necessarily able to purchase leaves from this plant every year, I don't even know if we will be able to offer Ergazi in the future. But we will get to that point in a moment, because there are a couple of nuances about the sourcing. And what I wanted to do is actually brew this tea so that I can describe the taste. And maybe while I'm doing that and I'm getting ready, I will tell you an analogy to better understand what actually are these cultivar, transitional variety, and wild. Because I understand that while wild and cultivar is kind of easy, it's a little bit unclear, right? What is this phase in between? I put already here before about 4 grams of leaves, just opening up the cake that I actually kept for me. And I was saying an analogy. So tea plants are plants, and if we think at an analogy, I was actually thinking at humans. Now, if you consider a wild plant and you try to find an analogy in humanity, I would say that that's a random individual somewhere in the world. And if you want to harvest leaves from different wild trees, those wild trees are unlikely to be one next to each other, because trees grow everywhere, not one next to each other. There are other plants in between. So you have to go through the forest and you find one tree here, another tree a few kilometers down the road. or down the forest. So you end up with a series of individuals, of humans in our analogy, that have very little relationship with each other, right? And this is what a wild plant is pretty much. And that's why it is said that a danshu, a tree from a single tree, something that in the Western is very appreciated, is less so in China because the taste is a little bit flat. You get only that one plant. When you have different wild trees together, you have a little bit more diversity, but it's also somewhat unrelated with each other. It's just more complex, but just because there is a little bit on that and a little bit of that. Now, if we think about a transition variety, an analogy would be a segregated human population. A population, let's say on an island, that has been far away from anyone else. It hasn't been in contact with any other type of civilization for a long, long time. And so they have, generation after generation, achieved some common features. I can think about Polynesia many years ago. So you have that all people living in Polynesia that were there for generation and generation are very easy to recognize, have particular type of eyes, type of hair, color of the skin, maybe how tall they are, and so on and so forth. And if you do tea out of this population, you take different individuals, but actually what you get in your cup is the flavor of this population that was determined by nature. Now, if you think about the cultivar, it's a little bit more difficult actually. Maybe likely we don't have a human analogy for a cultivar, but in a way it would be like an engineered person that has been intentionally designed to be very strong, very resilient, and maybe long living. The analogy that I can think the closest of is actually Data from Star Trek. From those that are Star Trek fans, Data is the android, a kind of nearly perfect human, or humanoid. So it would be something like that. So you have a very selected type of human, and why it may be perfect for some aspects is also pretty isolated and very clustered in a way. And with a population of Polynesia, for example, your clustering is existing, but is way broader, wider. All right, let's get a sip. A tea that by now is about 5 years of age. So good, so good. I didn't have this tea for a very long time. And at the end, this has been so popular. I would say it's probably the best sold tea over the past 5 years on the Nannuoshan shop. I don't have now looked into analytics, but I cannot think of another one. And interestingly, our most popular black tea over this year is Cloud Mountain, and it's come from the same producer, actually, in the Yunnan county of Lincang. Yunnan means cloud in the Cloud County. I will tell you at the end, which is the first thing that I think when I drink this tea. But certainly what you get as an overall taste is complexity, is layered, is like, if I think of the stone, it's not a smooth stone. It has a lot of features, very different texture depending on where you are grabbing it. So something very, very complex in a way. Nonetheless, there is not much bitterness actually. Well, it's also the first brew, we will see later on, but there is actually no bitterness at all here. A little bit of resinous, a little bit woody, yeah. And let's see if we get some bitterness out of it. By the way, this tea, I was in China just a few weeks ago, so I brought with me a few cakes, and those are available now on the shop after it had been sold out. There is more. I actually bought everything I could find and I left it in China. That rest of the batch will be delivered in summer. So here's what I suggest you. Now, if you know this tea, you don't have anyone to listen to me, you know you have been missing it, you just go and you grab it as much as you wish. If you haven't bought this tea and tried this tea before and you're curious, don't get the big, just get a sample, either a small sample, a little pouch, and get a taste of it and see how do you like it. If you like it now, don't wait the end of the spring. If you like it now, just remind that, keep an eye on our newsletter. We will announce where in spring the rest of the batch will come out. And that's the point in time when you really want to get a cake so that you can keep it, because I tell you, the next time you will watch at the product page, it won't be there anymore. I've seen this story repeating over and over again, both for our teams. I know already quite a few in the Nannuoshan team that will grab their cakes. So I come to the point now. The very peculiar characteristic to me of this tea is that it's fruity, and it's not so easy to find a shampooer that is so clearly fruity as this one. It goes in the direction of citrus fruits. It goes also a little bit in the direction of mango, if you want, so tropical somehow, citrus tropical. Also here, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly something, because maybe some people would more notice the mango, some other would more notice the lemon aspects of it. But I would say that nearly everyone would agree that this tea is fruity and is not so floral actually. Yeah, certainly the fruitiness is dominating. And now if you add the complexity with this very clear fruity note, a little bit of resinous, woody taste, you get this perfect recipe that might be possible only from a transitional cultivar. That's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope it added a little, let's say, piece to the puzzle of your tea knowledge. If that's the case, don't forget to give us a like and to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it so. Every time I find new tea knowledge, I'm here to share it with you. Bye guys.